Okay, this is going to be a little bit of a different one because normally I'm riding around like an idiot on my motorbike and talking about Freemasonry. This one I'm actually sat at my computer. I'm doing this as a podcast as opposed to just to a video because there's no real video for this. This is just me talking about a debate online that I saw about Freemasonry and Christians. So there's no real video, just be me on camera looking like an idiot. So the debate that I'm talking about, it was uploaded on the 2nd of May 2026, and the title of it is Heated Debate, 2 Christian Freemasons versus 1 Anti-Freemason Christian. It's a great debate, sort of. It's painful to watch for a lot of it, to be honest with you. And I'll put a link to this video in the description for you. Now, the debate has 3 people in it. So there's an Orthodox Christian called J. Dyer, and 2 Freemasons, Chase Geiser, and Ryan Turbeville. And I apologise profusely if I've made a mocker of your names. I'm sorry, I don't mean any disrespect. And I'm sure they'll understand that. Now, the reason I wanted to do this video is because the debate itself, it was painful to watch, and the main reason for that was the way that Jay carried himself. He was very aggressive, condescending, and just outright rude, disrespectful in the way in his approach. He was talking over the top of them, and when he wasn't getting his way or they're making a point and it's not going in Jay's favour, he just became more aggressive and aggressive. And normally, when people become aggressive in a debate and condescending and just outright rude and going on the attack, and yeah, at one point he was, especially right at the end, he was just in attack mode. It shows you that he's lost the debate. He's lost control. He'll have a different view on that, and that's fine. This is my opinion, okay? Purely my opinion, and that's it. He's got his opinions, and that's cool, right? But there's a couple of areas where I don't believe the 2 Freemasons on the show really explained themselves properly, and there's nothing against them. Look, they're in the heat of the moment with someone screaming at them and attacking them, being condescending and rude, and cutting them off, taking things out of context deliberately to try and win an argument that he knew he was losing. So these guys did a good job. They could have explained things better, and I'm sure if they watched the video, or 2 seconds after they answer the questions, probably had a better answer. So let's go through a few things. Very early on, there was the argument about a word. That's all they were doing. It was just arguing about a word, dogma. And I will say that Jay still didn't understand the etymology of the word and how that word was being used, because his argument started off really basing Freemasonry on what Albert Pike has written. So he's using Albert Pike's book, Morals and Dogma, and he's using the word dogma in a modern term, which means, you know, the authority. He is the authority and so on. And that's not the way it's used. In Freemasonry, you need to understand etymology because we're using ancient words. And the 2 Masons did explain this, but Jay didn't seem to understand or couldn't make that connection. So when Albert Pike is using the word dogma, he's saying teachings. His book is just his interpretation of his understanding of Freemasonry. And every Freemason will have their interpretation of it and how they apply it to their life. Now, so dogma is just his teachings. No Mason picks up Albert Pike's books, any of his books, and reads them from cover to cover and says that's what Freemasonry is. A lot of Masons haven't even read any of Albert Pike. Some of them probably don't know who Albert Pike is. So the argument of Albert Pike being the spokesperson for Freemasonry, even though in the preface of his book, he clearly says he is not the spokesperson for it. He says in the preface of the book that the teachings are not sacramental, and that every reader is free to reject what he finds. Because it's the way that it is. Freemasonry is not a religion. We don't have a fixed book of truths. We have a ritual, yes, and that's a ritual that we use to teach some basic principles to people when they're going through different degrees. But that's not all of Freemasonry. That's not what Freemasonry is about. It is not about that ritual itself. It is about the internal journey that a person goes through. The rituals that we use are like guides that we use to explain different things, and these are things that have been taught in ancient times. So Albert Pike is not the spokesperson for Freemasonry. I'm not the spokesperson for Freemasonry. The two that were on the debate were not the spokespeople for Freemasonry, and they clearly said that. Your Masonic journey is a personal journey you go through. Yes, there is structured teachings in the ritual, but there's more teachings outside of that ritual as well. We do lectures as well. So we try to understand and then apply what is being taught to us. We are not a religion. You're not allowed to talk about religion or politics within a lodge, because those are the two things that cause the most conflict. When he got a little bit stuck, and honestly for the first half hour or 40 minutes though, he was just stuck on the word dogma and just trying to find different ways to catch the Masons out on dogma. It was ridiculous, to be honest. Dogma is used from the etymology teachings. That's it. So it shouldn't have gone on for that long. He then goes on and says, well, Freemasonry is deism, or anti-deism, because what he's using is, in the first degree, we call a god the great architect of the universe. So he's saying that implies that we believe in a creator god and not a god that you can interact with, as in the great architect of the universe just created the world and then buggered off. There's no communication with him. He just built stuff. That's it. And that's really taking things out of context, and that's a massive leap. Like, that's just a massive assumption that he's made. There's nothing to contribute with the debate. This is just an assumption that he's jumped to, based on someone saying the great architect of the universe. Now, if you want to put it in context, in the second degree, we refer to a god as the grand geometrician of the universe. And in the third degree, we refer to a god as the Most High. Who's the Most High? Well, Jesus refers to the Most High as his Father. So there's three different names. To join Freemasonry, you have to have a belief in a higher power. That is it, okay? A higher power. We're not saying what God you have to believe in. And when I say that is it, I'm not saying that's the only criteria to join Freemasonry. But you have to believe in a higher power. There's one barrier of entry, okay? We don't want you to just think that you are the center of the universe, because you're not going to improve yourself. Freemasonry is about improving yourself. So we want you to believe, or you need to believe, in a higher power. Something greater than you. The world doesn't revolve around you. That seemed to be another sticking point for him, but we'll bypass that. So Albert Pike, they are not the speakers for Freemasonry, and what they say doesn't mean that is what Freemasonry is about. He makes a comment that Albert Mackey is mentioning the Kabbalah. Okay, cool. There's many different religions mentioned in different books written by different Freemasons, and they draw different examples of stuff. And with some of the morals that we teach, they come from some religions as well. We get different moral lessons from some religions, from different holy scriptures, and we get some moral lessons from outside of religion. Freemasonry, the teachings of Freemasonry, goes back thousands of years before religion. So before Jesus was born, before any religion really existed, or any modern religion we know today existed, the Masonic teachings go back way before that. Freemasons are just a modern name for the same teachings. You have Pythagoreanism out there, you've got the Essenes, you've got Jesus running around talking about stuff as well as the Messiah, right? Freemasonry goes back to ancient times, and we take things, and we've taken things from all these different people, all these different cultures, all these different societies over time. Some of our teachings go back to Sumerian, some of them go to Egypt. They're not from, or just from, some of the modern religions. The reason we've taken things from modern religions is because it's easier to relate to people. That's it. Okay, so etymology seems to be a real stickler for Jay in this debate. So, profane. He was hooked up on the word profane. He was saying that, well, Freemasons say that, well, anyone that is not within their lodge is profane, as in vulgar. So the modern meaning of the word profane is something's vulgar, something's not so good. No, again, the etymology. Yes, we have the word profound in our ritual. We have the word profound in lectures that we do as well. It is not saying something is vulgar. Profane simply means outside of the temple, yet to be admitted. That's all it's referring to. It's just saying anyone that's outside of the temple, meaning outside of Freemasonry, they can't just freely walk into a Masonic lodge. They need to be approved. They need to be admitted. Why? Because we only want good people in there with good intent. We don't want bad people in there, or even good people with bad intent. So I've jotted down, so I'm referring to some notes here, and I'm just scrolling through dogma. He just keeps coming up with dogma. He just can't get it in his head that dogma does not mean the authority. It means teaching. Now, his next argument was trying to liken Freemasonry to Satanists and then trying to argue that Satanists can join. Well, it's quite easy to flip that. Can a Satanist join the Catholic Church? Yeah, they can. It'd be a lot easier for them to join because they just don't disclose that they're a Satanist. They're not going to be doing any background checks. They can go join a Catholic church or an Orthodox church. A lot easier, right? In Freemasonry, we do background checks. You've got to get a police check. And this is the other confusion which comes up later on, probably after an hour and a half, nearly the 2-hour mark, when they're talking about joining a lodge. So when you're joining a lodge, yes, you're joining Freemasonry, but a lodge is individual. So, and a smart Freemason, a very knowledgeable Freemason, has given me this analogy. Grand Lodge cannot exist without Masonic lodges, but Masonic lodges can exist without a Grand Lodge. A Grand Lodge is not there to dictate what a lodge does, really, in a sense, right? Lodges have their ritual that they do. A Grand Lodge is really there to sort of keep everyone organised and consistent, ensure that the tradition continues on. So they're administrative. That's what a Grand Lodge is. They're the administration. They'll issue out warrants to a new lodge starting up. They'll give that warrant. And that's ensuring that new lodges aren't just popping up everywhere with occultism and random crazy stuff happening. To be a true Masonic lodge, you've got to be under a united Grand Lodge of your state or your area. And that's how they're ensuring that some random group of people aren't going to go, let's set up a Masonic lodge and just talk about, whatever random crazy stuff. So they're ensuring consistency and keeping, again, the profane out, the people that aren't already Masons from creating a Masonic lodge. There's processes you've got to go to. It's up to the individual lodge who they accept. Okay, so part of the onboarding process, when I say onboarding, joining process, however you want to put it, if you want to become a Freemason, and I'm going to talk out from the context of Queensland in Australia, and most countries are going to be the same, and different areas are going to be the same, but there are going to be exceptions. So if you want to join Freemasonry in Queensland, you don't have to know another Mason. You can go to the UGLQ website, or you can go to their Facebook page and submit, just fill out the contact form and express your interest in joining Freemasonry. Or you can find a lodge in your area and reach out to the secretary of that lodge and say, hey, I'm in the area, I'm interested in joining Freemasonry. What's going to happen from there is they're going to have a chat to you. They're going to invite you out to come to a festive board or a south. And I've covered this in one of my videos. Let me work out which one it is. How to prepare to join Freemasonry. But I'll give you a gist of it in here in case you don't want to go watch that video. But essentially you show an interest. The lodge secretary is going to invite you to a south or a festive board, which is just a meal and drinks that we have after we have actually had lodge, to get to know people. And this works in two ways. They need to know, the brethren of the lodge need to know that you're going to be compatible with the lodge. You're going to fit in. And you need to see that you're going to fit in with those brethren. You may not. You may be advised to go join another lodge. And they won't just say, bugger off, we don't want to hear about you, unless you've really got bad intentions. But if they believe, look, you're not quite gelling with the members of this lodge, one of the secretary is then going to take you to another lodge's festive board and introduce you, who they think you'll fit in better. And that could be because you could be a really nice person, you might really gel with some of the people in the lodge, but you've said that you've got a particular hobby. Let's just say scouts, because there is a scout lodge, and that you're really passionate about scouts, but you weren't aware there is actually a scout lodge. So you might be a really nice person, you might really gel with the brethren of the lodge that you've expressed your interest with, but they're going to go, you know what, you're going to really like these guys even better. That is going to be a better lodge for you because your hobbies are aligned and your interests are aligned. So then they'll take you out to visit. They'll let the secretary of that other lodge know, and they'll take you out to one of their festive boards and introduce you, and away you go. Because we're trying to make sure you're in a group or in a lodge with the right people that works for you. This is your individual journey. So an individual lodge may not accept you because there's someone or there's multiple people in the lodge that have conflict with you, and it's just going to cause disharmony in the lodge. So then they're going to go, yeah, look, we don't want this guy to join. And that'll happen before it even goes to a voting process. So individual lodges will decide if someone can join Freemasonry or not based on whether they're suitable for that lodge. So, and that will happen before it goes to a ballot. It's very, very, very rare that someone gets a black ball in a ballot. It does happen, but it's very, very rare because all that's established long before. Well before that process happens. Anyway, if you want to know the rest about the process of joining Freemasonry, go and have a look at that video. That's not what this is about. So when they were saying in there, and he was trying to say, well, you'd let Satanists join. Like, no, we're not going to let Satanists join. No one in the lodge is going to accept a Satanist joining the Masonic lodge. We're saying higher power. You would consider Satan as a lower power, not a higher power. And we would not approve someone to join the lodge if they're at difference with everyone else in the lodge, or if we see that, hang on, we've done a background check on this person, they don't have very good morals and ethics, we don't consider them a good person, we're not going to be able to help them, we won't let them join. It is up to the individual lodge if they want that person to join. Now, he was sort of saying that, or arguing that, well, because you accept people of different religions, a Hindu might not accept someone because they're a Muslim or they're a Jew or whatever the case may be. No, he's failing to understand the concept of this. And I get it, it is foreign to him, so it is on Masons to explain it better. We are not a religion. And Freemasons understand that. So when they're making a decision whether someone should join or not, there is no religious bias in it. The religious bias is removed. We are able to remove our religious bias from the decision when it comes to the lodge, because Freemasonry and religion are two separate things. We are not a religion. So no Hindu is going to reject someone from joining Freemasonry because they're a Jew or a Muslim or a Christian, because there's no religious bias. That is why. It's very simple. It's hard to conceive, I guess, for someone who is very, like a religious fanatic, I guess, and they can't separate their religion from their decisions. Freemasonry, we can. This is what we work on. Okay, so let's scroll through. I'm just scrolling through some of the other stuff. He was really trying to push the whole Satan thing. Honestly, it's easier for a Satanist to join the Catholic Church or Orthodox Church than it is a Masonic lodge, to be honest, because we do background checks, we do police checks. We want to know your character. We interview you and your partner. And the reason we interview your partner is because if your partner's against you joining Freemasonry, it's not ideal for you to join because it's going to disrupt the peace and harmony of your home. Another reason why you might not be allowed to join is because your partner doesn't want you to. We do not want to disrupt the harmony in your home. So we do these background checks. We look into who you are. So really, Freemasonry is really protecting itself from bad people. But he keeps going on about that and trying to make it out as if Freemasons are Satanists and that we accept Satanists and all this kind of... His argument was mute. If anything, if we flip that argument on him, he would have to accept that, yes, it's a lot easier for a Satanist to join an Orthodox church or any kind of church. He's also calling on, again, and he's stuck on Albert Pike, where Albert Pike says the absolute truth is unattainable. So let me just read that out as it's written. Is our duty always to press forward, though absolute truth is unattainable? So that's what he's referring to, or the bit of text that he's referring to make his argument. saying that because we're saying, or Albert Pike, not us, sorry, big distinction there, because Albert Pike said that it means absolute truth doesn't exist based on his interpretation of what Albert Pike said. So again, this is his interpretation, and claiming that Albert Pike is the authority and dictates what we study in Freemasonry, which has already been made the point that it is not true. So that argument, the truth is unattainable, or the absolute truth is unattainable. Here's my interpretation of that as a Freemason. And you've got to understand, we're giving an interpretation as Freemasons, and he's trying to make his arguments and interpret stuff as a non-Mason that doesn't understand what actually happens in Lodge and what our principles are. So it's easier for us to correct an understanding, but if someone's closed-minded and they just want to argue because they want to win a debate instead of actually understand where this is coming from, it's really hard, right? You're not going to change someone's mind unless they are open to understanding. Now, absolute truth doesn't exist based on what? Are we in our current state of mind able to attain the absolute truth? No, we're not. This is just the same as in our present era and our society with technology, we're not able to go to Pluto. And they alluded to that, the two Masons alluded to that as an example. Based in our current state, we can't go to Pluto yet. We don't have the technology to do it. We're not able to do it in our current mindset with our current technology. The same as attain the absolute truth with our current mindset. We need to change, hence the word repent. Repent has been a word that's been misused for years. It's been interpreted as to show penance, to self-punish, to feel bad, remorse about your actions. The true meaning in the Bible, where they're taking that from, actually means change your mind. That's what it meant, change your mind. And that's what Freemasonry is trying to do. Change your mind on what's been drilled into your head growing up, because it's not really the truth. It's not really the meaning of life. The meaning of life isn't to go get a full-time job, stay there until you get your golden watch for retiring at 65, and you can't live your life because you spent your life paying off your mortgage, housewife, kids, all the new cars, all the stuff that everyone else tells you have to buy to be a normal person in society. Where's life? Where do you get to live? You get to live when you retire at, let's be honest, in Australia, 80 years old. And what do you do after that? That's not life. You work for someone else your entire life. I'm not saying quit your job. I'm saying think about life in a different way. What's really important to you? Is it really important for you to have those new fancy shoes because your neighbour has them? Is it important to you to go buy a more expensive car because your neighbour bought an expensive car? No, change your mind. What's really important to you? What's the focus here? So anyway, I think they answered that one pretty well, but it just flew straight over his head. And again, you can't base Freemasonry off what Albert Pike says or what Mackey says, because Freemasonry is an individual journey. Claiming that Freemasonry is subjectable and that Satanism is an objectable thing, therefore Freemasonry is the same. I don't think I even need to argue that. And I think I've already gone over that already by saying it would be much easier for a Satanist to join the Catholic Church or any other church than it is to join in Freemasonry, because we do background checks, police checks are done, we look into someone's character before they join. So arguing that is just exposing himself, because you could just switch that question around and saying, are you telling me that no Satanists have ever gone into a church? You can't say that. And again, the misunderstanding when it comes to Masonic lodges, like I've already gone over, it's up to the individual lodge if that individual person is suitable to their individual lodge. That doesn't mean they're excluded from Freemasonry as a whole. I'm not talking about Satanists. I'm just talking about a general person, a good person, wanting to join. They could be rejected by one lodge but accepted by another. But a Satanist would not be accepted by any. And that's what they're trying to put across there. He didn't quite understand the point that you're joining a lodge, you're not joining Freemasonry in general. You're trying to get into a lodge, and that lodge will protect themselves, and they have their own rules for that lodge. It's separate. But anyway, we'll move on. Now, what else we got here? He really goes into Satanism for a long period of time, but it didn't work. Okay, so he made a point, or asked the question, what is the value Freemasons use to identify what makes a person better? As in making a good man better. Because the motto is, we make good men better. Now, why does there have to be a value or a matrix used to measure someone's goodness, right? We're saying we make good men better because it's inherent that you are going to be a better person if you apply the teachings of Freemasonry. You would be a better person if you actually applied the wisdom in any scripture, in any ancient scripture, as in biblical scripture. Well, I can't say any because there's some pretty horrendous scripture out there, but you know what I'm getting at here. There's some good scripture out there, there's some good sayings that Jesus had, and you apply them to your life, you're going to be a better person. In Freemasonry, we've got some good sayings. And if you apply them to your life, you will be a better person. It's hard not to be when you're applying good methodology to your life. So, yeah, we don't measure. This is an internal journey. You're only kidding yourself if you think you're a better person because of it and you've done nothing to your life, haven't applied anything to your life. This is your personal journey. So our teachings are ancient. I'm not saying we use biblical teachings or teachings from different holy scriptures. Our teachings go back thousands of years, long before modern religion. It's just when you're dealing with people in the current setting, you want to use current terminology or current phrases or things that they're familiar with. And modern religion is something that a lot of people are familiar with. So we can use some of those examples, but they're not the only examples we have. Not all the examples we have come from a religious text. So that's making good men better. And I have done a video on making good men better as well. So you can watch that if you want more detailed explanation. Whether it's a good explanation or not is a different story, let's be honest. Now, towards the end, he got really aggressive and just name-calling type mentality, like your stupid organisation, your dumb organisation, and because he lost the argument, he lost the debate. He completely lost, and he got blown out of the water when that lady got up and asked the last question. Now, a couple of things I'd like to sort of stress on as well. When it comes to Freemasonry, and these two Masons did say, well, yes, only men can join. True and not true. There's multiple Masonic organisations. So your traditional Freemasonry, yes, that is only men. But there's also female-only Freemasonry. There's also mixed Freemasonry where you can have both men and women in the lodge, in the same lodge. There's also Freemasonry for kids, and I've gone over this about what is Freemasonry, or one of the videos I've actually gone over this. But the Freemasonry for kids is just like the Scouts. We're just trying to instill good values into kids, into the younger generation coming up. Now, they're not forced to join Freemasonry afterwards. Some of them do, some of them don't. It's their choice. This is not a cult. You're not born into it and you're forced to join it. I can leave Freemasonry anytime I like. In fact, I can leave what I call my mother lodge, and your mother lodge is just the lodge that you're initiated into. I can leave that whenever I like. I can send an email or just call the secretary today and say, hey, I'm out. Don't want to be in it anymore. That's fine. There's no backlash. And later in life, if I want to join, I'm still a Freemason, considered a brother. I can go join again. It's completely up to me. I was a member of multiple different orders, and I left them all. I just wanted to stay with the Craft Lodge, the Blue Lodge. That was it. I left the other orders, and there's no harm, no foul. They don't mind. It's just what it is. And they even said to me, well, if you want to join back up again or rejoin these orders, let us know. It's fine. So it's not a cult. You're not stuck into it. You're not born into it. Yes, if you've got family members that were Masons, it's probably a bit easier to get in, assuming you're still a good person and you pass that onboarding process, which is a police check comes back clear and the references for you come back clear as well. Yeah, you'll be able to join. But you don't have to have family members to join Freemasonry whatsoever. You're not born into it. There's plenty of people that have had their parents as Freemasons and they didn't want to join Freemasonry themselves, and that's cool, that's fine. It's a personal journey. It doesn't affect Freemasonry if someone says, I don't want to join. Same as it doesn't affect Freemasonry if someone's going out there starting all these rumors about Freemasonry, because most people can see past that. And those that are really wanting to change their life, they do see past that. They realize that this is all a lot of crap. at the end of the day, there's a lot of people online creating false content about Freemasonry, saying all this demonic stuff, because they make money out of the content. It's clickbait. They don't know. There's even people that claim to be 33rd Masons and all that kind of stuff. They weren't Masons. Now, there are unofficial Masonic lodges, so unapproved Masonic lodges. So you do have some lodges out there where just random people have woken up and gone, we're going to start a Masonic lodge, and they start one up. They're not an official Freemason lodge. They're not an approved Freemason lodge. They're not Freemasons. They may buy all the regalia off of Amazon or eBay or wherever, but it doesn't mean they're Freemasons. They may have downloaded some ritual that's available online, and they may do that ritual, and they may do it quite well, but they're not Freemasons. So there is a lot of false content out there, and I'm sure there's some dodgy fake Masonic lodges out there that do some dodgy stuff, but they're not Freemasons. And that's what we're talking about here and what we're debating. And at least this J person understands that to some degree. We are not talking about blood oaths and things like that, although he did mention a blood oath. And again, he's very manipulative in the way that he's saying things. He said, he just, as a sly comment, like, oh, well, you got your blood oaths. And one of the Masons said, well, what do you mean by blood oath? And he said, well, are you not threatened by having your throat cut across? That's not a blood oath. A blood oath, well, to me, is where you're giving an obligation and blood is involved, as in you've got to cut your hand or a drop of blood in a cup or something like that, which is not in Freemasonry. Now, when he's talking about the penalties, and so he's raised the penalty, and I'm going to address that because I'm not releasing any Masonic secrets, I'm addressing a question that he's got. He's saying to have your throat cut across as a punishment for your breaking your obligation. We do not cut someone's throat if they break their obligation. They may get kicked out of Freemasonry, but we're not chopping people up and killing people or maiming them in any way. No, that's an ancient penalty that's referred to that no one goes through. And we do also say another, or the less horrendous, or we'll say to that effect, and then talk about another penalty, which has nothing to do with harming anybody. It's just basically you're going to be kicked out. So he's alluding to that, and then has a bit of a sly comment, oh, well, what about in this instance? So there is an instance where, and it actually involves the Vatican, that a Freemason was found with his throat cut hanging from a bridge in England. And it was claimed that the Freemasons did that because he broke his obligation. Well, no. And, well, we all know that the Vatican doesn't like Freemasonry. Maybe we get into that in another video or maybe another sort of podcast type thing, depending if you guys like this or not. This guy was tied in with some wrongdoings of the Vatican, and this is all being alleged, right? That the Vatican was involved with some mobsters in giving them some money to do some certain work, and this person was sort of against that, and he ended up being killed. So, yeah, no. There's no evidence to say that Freemasons did that to him. There's more evidence saying that the mobsters actually did that to him. So, anyway, you can make these references, and it's like dropping a comment. So, I did say in a video, and I might not have posted that video, but I did post a reply to someone's comment. I watched a video on Freemasonry, and this person, a pretend Freemason, claiming all this satanic stuff and demon stuff about Freemasonry, which is just a load of bollocks. And I thought, well, let's see what happens to their loyal followers if I challenge them. And so I made comment that, hey, this is the equivalent of me saying that to join the church, I have to take a blood oath in a bath of the blood of my enemies. Like, people wouldn't have believed that because anyone can walk into a church. These people are just exploiting the fact that Freemasonry doesn't allow people just to walk in off the street. And yeah, I got a response, as you would expect. And I only did it because I wanted to see what kind of response I would come back with. Would it be anything without any actual logic to it, or just a knee-jerk reaction? And I got a knee-jerk reaction back. They just said, oh, if you Google the hundreds of results that come back when you search this, that Freemasons do, something starting with R to women and all this nasty stuff. I said, well, that's not a response. That's not evidence. And if I Google said thing, more's going to come back, because I don't think there's anything that comes back with Freemasonry. I haven't even Googled it, to be honest with you, but Because I just know there's not going to be hundreds of things that come back because it's not a Masonic thing. You get kicked out of Freemasonry if you break the law. That's why you need a police check to join. But if I was to Google said thing, what's going to come back? Probably hundreds of results of priests being accused of said thing and Hollywood being accused of said thing, not Freemasons. So again, there was no evidence of that they could put forward to say that Freemasonry is satanic or any of that kind of stuff. And who could? Because one, Freemasonry isn't, and two, anyone that's claiming that is not a Freemason. They didn't do Freemasonry. Maybe they thought they did and they joined a Masonic lodge that is not a Masonic lodge, just a fake one. Just like on Facebook, you'll see that there's people on there saying, we're the Illuminati, join us. It's only $5,000 to join the Illuminati. Do you think that's a real Illuminati? No. No different. There's scams going on out there all the time. But no, real Freemasonry, there is none of that crap in there. Is it compatible with the Orthodox Church? I would argue, yeah, it is. But that's up to the individual person. I don't believe any church has any right to control someone's faith and tell them what they should be doing. Faith is a personal thing. You should have your direct connection with God. Why should you have to pay someone to connect to God? Why? Is the Pope a God? Is the Pope a Messiah? Who are they to tell you what you can and can't do? You should have your faith in God directly with your God. Now, the Bible and all the Holy Scriptures out there, yeah, use them as references, use them as reminders, but how many Christians, let's just pick on Christians, okay? Well, not really pick on them, but use them as an example. How many Christians have actually read the Bible and apply the teachings from the Bible to their everyday life to be a better person, to handle things at times of need? I would say very few. No different to Freemasons, mind you. I would say there's very few Freemasons that pick up the ritual book to use in a time of need. And this has been my argument as to why there's an issue in Freemasonry, because the Masonic teachings aren't really being taught as well as they should be, and they're not being understood. People might be able to recite ritual really well from memory, but they don't understand the words. They've just memorized meaningless words. Masonic ritual is teaching. Anyway, that's my argument in Freemasonry anyway, but the ritual there, again, is not our Bible. The ritual is our ritual. They're our teachings. For someone to go through that degree work, there is a lot more to it than just ritual. And really what the ritual is teaching you, and again, I'm not giving away Masonic teachings, it's really telling you to apply stuff. We say hidden and allegory and all this kind of stuff and mystic teachings and symbols and secret meanings to stuff. If you read the Masonic ritual, it is literally telling you what to do. There are things hidden. There is some hidden knowledge, but you must first apply what we're teaching to you in order to be able to get to that. What is wrong with that? Why does a church hate an organization or a group of people who accept anyone from any religion, of any faith? And when I say faith, I'm not saying Satanism. I'm not considering that a faith, right? I'm saying faith, religion, good people. Why would they hate an organization that's full of good people with faith, regardless of whatever God they may have? Doesn't matter, it's irrelevant. They're just a group of good people with faith. And teaching them how to be better people. We're not telling them to change religion. We're not telling them to get out of religion. We're not doing any of that. We're not allowed to speak about religion or politics in lodge. So what is wrong with a group of people that are trying to make people better? I don't see the problem with it. That's my opinion, that's my view. Could be biased because I'm a Freemason, but at the same time, it's because I'm a Freemason, I know what goes on in the lodge. I didn't have the faith I have today until I joined Freemasonry. The only reason I was allowed to join was because they said, do you have a belief in a higher power? And I'm like, well, yeah, there's probably something out there, but I never went to church. I've never been to church before in my life. That's a lie nowadays, because I have been to church once, maybe twice for funerals. That's it. But I've never actually gone to a church to listen to a preacher or anything like that. Doesn't mean I'm against it. I just don't need it. I found my faith through Freemasonry. Freemasonry doesn't talk about any gods or anything like that. We're not trying to convince you of a god or what god is right or wrong. I found my personal faith because Freemasonry led me towards that. So if anything, Freemason will actually make people, let's just say the dirty word, religious. Really what I mean is have some faith, and they might go choose a religion. Because of Freemasonry, we're instilling good in people, or getting the good out of people, more good out of people. So yeah, I'm a person of faith now because of my Masonic journey. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, I don't see the issue with it. I do believe I have an understanding of why the Vatican don't like Freemasonry. It's not valid, but there is a reason for it. It's got nothing to do with being incompatible, though. It's their own political views, and like I said, how can you hate an organisation that's making good people better? Anyway, that's my take on this 2 hours and 15 minute debate, and it's taken me 40 minutes to get through it. Have a look at it. I'd say put it on 2 times speed or 1.5 speed just to get through it. It is very painful. And honestly, look, if I was in a debate with this Dyer guy, I probably wouldn't last that long. I'm not going to tolerate someone being that disrespectful, that spiteful, and that arrogant. It's not cool, man. Extremely rude. Just shouting because you're losing an argument, not letting people answer the question. He's just cutting them off, and then spinning things, and then deliberately reading stuff out of context to make it look bad. And he didn't like it when they're like, well, hang on a minute, let's read the full context of it. I mean, one of them was when the King James Version of the Bible was talking about Lucifer, morning star. Well, they were actually referring to Jesus in the one translation of the Bible, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there was one translation of the Bible where Lucifer was put in as a translation when they're talking about Jesus, because the light bringer, the morning star, the first bit of light you see in the day. And then that sort of progressed later on into being used as the name for Satan, for the devil. But it was actually originally in the original sort of translation, and there was documents on it. They just said, yeah, just put Lucifer down, morning star, first light, the enlightened one. And then that's sort of spun into, nowadays it's just referred to as a devil, and further books have come out with it as the meaning of the devil. But anyway, we'll move on, we'll digress, because this is going to be way too long. Tell me your thoughts. I'm not sure. I've never put anything under the podcast part of YouTube. This will be the first time I'm doing it, so I don't know if you can comment on this stuff. If you can, fantastic. Put some comments in there. Tell me what your views on it. If you watched the debate, if you can make it through it, fantastic. It is interesting. Tell me what you think. Am I completely wrong? Am I right on some things, wrong on others, or I'm just way out there? Let me know. I'd be interested to hear.